Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mosaic podcast. I say this every podcast. I can't believe how quickly this is growing, how many people are coming and listening to it, and how many episodes I'm doing. When I first signed up to do it, they said, well, you'll do about one a week, maybe two a month, something like that. It seems like we're at episode 22 now already, and there's more and more that are just coming. So I'm so excited. And wait till you hear who I have today, because I think you're going to love her. I'm going to read her bio, but the bio, blah, 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 blah. It's all nice words, okay? Her name is Erin Loman Jeck. And Erin is the CEO of Transformational Speakers Agency and the creator of the Transformational Speakers Summit. She is the leading authority on assisting thriving, purpose-driven entrepreneurs in how to monetize their message, make an impact, influence change, and inspire action. Erin's own speaking is powerful because she utilizes the psychology of connection to illustrate how you can unlock any audience's trust and rapport. Leaders all over the world seek her out to learn how to be more powerful in their influence. And I had the opportunity to meet her because she's friends with a friend of mine. And my friend was talking to me. She said, you just have to meet this woman. And I don't know about you, but it is so rare for me, I'm a giver. It's so rare for me to meet someone who comes into a conversation and just says, how can I help you? And really spends that conversation listening to what I was doing, listening to things I was doing, and just gave me idea after idea. She invited me to speak. It's just, I'm so touched because that's normally the role I play. And so as we do this podcast today, I want you to know that there's someone here on the other side that if you feel drawn to the message that she's saying, and we'll give you all the ways you can get in touch with her and all the things that she's doing in the show notes, and we'll talk about it at the end. But I want you to reach out to her because there's something special in what she does. And I think that I have this right. She said she had such a desire to create a mission that would help elevate the world that she realized that she couldn't do that on her own. So what she did is she supported the missions of everyone else. And in supporting the missions of everyone else, her mission became bigger and bigger. So allow her the opportunity to help support you in growing, monetizing, and making your mission happen. It is with deep, deep, deep love, deep gratitude, deep appreciation that I say, Erin, welcome to the Mosaic podcast.
I'm honored to be here because, like you said, we had such a magical conversation and we just found all these ways that we get to play together on this planet. I love it.
And that's when life really becomes fun. So much of the time we're selling things to people but in our conversation, no one was selling anything. We just naturally wanted to help each other. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing that happens. So let's jump in if that's okay. The question I always start out with is, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
And this is so funny because I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom because I came home before I go on my speaking tour. So sitting here thinking about what was on my walls in here, they were all dolphins and whales. I wanted to be a dolphin trainer.
Wow.
And probably since like third grade. And I actually did that. I went and I became I was doing my degree and I went and I became a trainer, like an assistant trainer as a internship. And then they were like, you don't need a marine biology degree. You just need a psychology degree. And I'm like, oh, I love people. I'm in. That's so much easier than all this math and science. So I came home, finished my degree in psychology, and went back and was a dolphin trainer in the Florida Keys. And I loved it. It was so amazing. It made my heart sing. And the dolphins actually healed me because I was in a massive car accident. And they actually healed the pain I was having. So I just love that I had that experience. And not many people get to have that experience.
Not even close. And I'm going to press the pause button right there because we hear of things like that. We hear that these dolphins have extraordinary abilities, and we hear how intelligent they are and how uh, they're capable of doing things. But when you say the dolphins healed you, can you jump into that? Can you dive in a little bit and tell us what that actually meant?
Yeah. So before I left Idaho to go to Florida, I had massive headaches every day. I had such a bad brain concussion. I had the front of my forehead, or my head slammed in, my skull slammed in the front of my head, slammed in the back. So I had damage on both sides of my head. And I had massive headaches every single day for a year. And when I was in pursuit of being a dolphin trainer and going down there, and I threw my resume over the fence, it's an amazing story because I have no idea how they found my resume, because it was later I found out it's over by the garbage cans. And I just had a little altar, and I just sat there and I manifested that they would ask me, and they did. So when I went there, just being with them and that high joy frequency that they put out is so amazing. And I just would communicate with them. I would feel them. I would play with them. And one day I realized I don't have headaches anymore. It was
Wow.
maybe like a week or two in, and I was like, wow, I haven't not had a headache every day for a year. And so I have so much joy for them and so much love for them, because it really did transform my whole entire body, right? And it just felt so good to be doing that.
So what happened to make you leave? Like, I would imagine at a certain point in time, you just say, oh my God, like, this is so incredible. I just want to stay here forever. And then what?
Well, dolphin training only pays $8.50 an hour, and living
Oh,
in the Florida Keys,
I got
that's a really high place to live, right?
yeah, because I
So,
think they feed the dolphins all the fish they can eat, right? They don't think they need
right.
more than that.
And so I was like, okay. So I was also doing social work down there.
Wow.
So I ended up meeting my husband, who was in the Navy, who was stationed down there. We fell madly in love. He got deployed to Greece. I was pregnant after we got married. And so I came home to Idaho to have my child so that I didn't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of a whole lifestyle change and all the different things that happened. And I would say probably in my retirement years, I might go back down there and just donate my time to training dolphins, because it was just so much fun.
Not many dolphins probably in Idaho, right?
None.
Um, as you were growing up, what was the thing that scared you the most?
I think losing people I love. So at 10 years old, my father passed away.
Wow.
And it was a freak accident, car accident. I didn't get to say goodbye. He was my best friend in the entire world, and he was everything to me.
Yeah.
And then my mom, we moved to Idaho. We moved back to Idaho, where I was born, and we came here because we had lots of support. And then my mom got into a relationship with a man who became like my stepfather, and we really had a great relationship. And it's funny, my stepbrother is in town right now from Australia, and we got to go out and have a beer, and it was so much fun to like just reconnect and talk about old times. And then at 15, my mom got malignant melanoma, and she was sentenced to a year to live.
Wow.
And that was really hard, because now I'm going to be an orphan in my brain, right? The little kid inside of me is like, oh, and I have two younger sisters. How am I going to hold this all together? How can I now become the only parent? Because I kind of became the second parent for a long time with my mom. And so after that happened, my stepfather couldn't handle that she had cancer, and he left too.
Wow.
So it was really difficult, because I had this program that, like, especially with men, all men leave was this thing that kept playing in my head,
Yeah.
right? And so my biggest fear was really, if I got close to someone and let them in, they would get hurt, they would die, or they would leave.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, it was working through a lot of that, because we just come with this little bit of a wall, right? Just like, I let you in, you'll think that you're in all the way, but I will still hold that little space just in case something happens. I don't want to totally be heartbroken again,
You,
right?
your words could have come right out of my own mouth. The years are a little bit different. My dad passed away when I was 13. My mom passed away when I was 15, 2 years later on the same day. And what I did in those moments is I erected for 2 millimeters from my heart, I erected a razor sharp razor blade sharp wall that said, you can't come in here. You'll get hurt if you do. You'll get hurt by the blade of my wall, but it will protect you from getting hurt more by getting to know me and getting close to me, because everybody that gets close to me gets hurt. How does that sit with you today? Because I know even today for me, I'm married to a woman who loves me more than I deserve to be loved. And yet I watch as I hold her at bay, because I think subconsciously, not consciously, but I think subconsciously, if I let you in too close, you're going to get hurt, or something bad's going to happen, or you're going to die. So I have to hold you away, and that's not an act of not loving you. It's an act of loving you. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I think having a husband who was in the military, so the first 4 years of our marriage, I was a single mom and my husband was deployed, and he would come and go and come and go and come and go. And every time that would happen, I would say, men leave, right? Because it was that program, men always leave. Yeah. Men leave. However, my husband always comes back.
Fabulous.
And I just had to really impress that into my brain every time he was ready to leave, that I was creating a new neural pathway, that's not going to happen, and it totally could have. He was in some scary places, right?
Yeah, he was in the military, for God's sake. I mean, it's possible that he wasn't coming back, right?
And I had to really breathe through that for a while. And it really took me some work, and I did some deep work, because the other thing that would show up for me is my wall. I call her Nurse Rachet, because Nurse Rachet took a lot of the hits for me. So I can be very fierce with my tongue. And since I'm an empath and know things about you, you probably aren't sharing publicly, I could really hurt somebody. Yeah. And I always kept that as that power play, And so when I started to realize that I didn't have to have her anymore, and I could sit her down and say, okay, there are some times that Nurse Ratchet's very effective when need to be. But right now she doesn't need to be. So I got this. I have this, right? And so it took me a while, and I did some deep work around my worth and about how I show up in the world and how I showed love. And so she takes a back seat. And I don't think she's really came out in I would say 5 or 6 years. And when I do feel her, now I look at my husband and I go, I need you to handle this, because Nurse Ratchet will come out if not. Yeah. And I think you might be able to handle it better than I am right now.
Love it.
So that mask that we wear, she took the hits for me for many years. She was the protector of everyone else, and she was the first one to jump into a fight and protect my people, right? So it was melding that, healing that, and realizing, I got this, Nurse Rachet. Erin is in full control. And I'd even talk to my little girl, you're okay. I'll handle this, and let them take a back seat and build that trust that I could handle it, and that they will be okay and safe.
Yeah, I often think about it as like a basketball team, and I'm the coach of the basketball team. Out of the 15 guys or 12 guys on the team, only 5 can play at any given time. So for me, my Nurse Rachet, which was my just walls of protection, I would say to them, look, I definitely do not want to send you home, but you've been playing really hard. It's time to take a little bit of a rest. There may be a time in the game as the game gets close and I get scared that I'm going to bring you back into play, but there may not be. But for now, just know you're on the bench. Know that you can come into the game at any point in time, and we'll just feel it out, okay? And there's a sense of comfort that gives to my protector, who is not needed anymore, but I believe sometimes is.
Right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Completely. I love your analogy. It's so much better than mine.
It's just, I'm a sports guy. I was a guy.
I was too. No, I was a sports, so it makes more sense to me. I'm like, wow, that was a great analogy. I need to use that one.
You can. You're welcome to do it. So what did you think was your greatest strength growing up?
My greatest strength was I could feel others' pain. I had so much empathy for others.
Hold on one second. Did you feel when you were growing up and feeling that was your greatest strength, or were you allowed to feel that as a strength?
I did. Well, because it became my mission. So what ended up happening was I actually overheard a conversation with my mother and my grandmother. It was around the time of my dad's funeral. And at 10 years old, I was told, it's painful to look at Erin. And that's all I heard. And so what I translated that into was my authentic self at 10 years old was causing pain to everyone around me. So I needed to fix them, take their pain, transmute it, because I was powerful. So I should be able to transmute it. And so I spent 30 some years doing that. Wow. At the expense of my own body, the expense of my own emotions. And I didn't even realize I was doing it.
And the expense of your own truth, because there's no way that was a true statement, even though we create those stories that say that's what it is. The story that I created of anybody coming close to me is going to get hurt, just simply a story. It's not true.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So your greatest strength was you were able to feel and hear things from people, but then the story you told was not one that gave you strength, that gave you something else.
Well, and in your brain, though, it feels like power. So it feels like strength, right? So if I take on your garbage, your emotional trash that you have going on, and I take it on and I say, I'm going to transmute it, I felt that was a power I had. So that was like some strength that I had. But it was built up since I was 10. So this was not a true power, but I felt like that was the way I had control. I could fix it and I can heal people. So then I would be worthy of their love.
Okay. It's fun when two empaths talk to each other. We already know what we're going to say. So I was literally, my next question that you answered right now was that a mechanism for you to feel like you could get love? Mm-hmm. And if I can fix you, if I can help you, if I can make you better, if I can take away your pain, then you'll love me, right?
Hence why I went to school to be a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm going to help more people and get paid for it.
So it's so interesting because when you trace it even back, like your work with the dolphins was that you felt something help you, and then you felt them take away your pain, and then you loved that, and then you took away other people's pain. So what would you say was your biggest weakness growing up?
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Self-worth. I was never good enough. So the little voice in my head told me I was too ugly, too fat, too stupid, too slow, too whatever. And I would attract situations in my life that people would reaffirm that for me. And it wasn't at home, because at home I was, we were very open. We were into all the woo-woo, body, mind, spirit stuff. But here in conservative North Idaho, I was crazy. Like there was something weird and witchy about me, or whatever people wanted to create about it. So there was always these judgments that I would feel and I would pick up on and internalize. And so I would attract those situations to literally tell my brain that I was right to believe that I was stupid, that I was not worthy. And the funny thing is I have evidence. I have 148 IQ. How can I ever be stupid? Yeah. But I believed that for many years, and I had teachers reflecting that and telling me I was stupid and never amount to anything. So I lived into it for a while.
So I want to slowly segue, because what I love about what's happening here is that one of the things that I find in speaking, and I'm segueing to the Transformational Speakers Bureau and the summit, is that so often our words only communicate a small part of what the message is that we have. And the feeling that we have, the vibration that we give, the stance that we hold, the presence that we occupy gives so much more. And so in my understanding of the world that I live in, and I'm not asking you to agree with it or disagree, I'm asking for I'm saying it as a question just to give some contrast to it. Part of the reason why our lack of self-confidence and our I'm not good enough is so debilitating is because when we walk into the room with the presence of I'm not good enough, it doesn't matter what words we say. Because our words, and you see that, I see that all the time with people who don't feel good enough telling me how great they are. and speaking about all the things that they've done and all the accomplished and all the, and I feel them, and I just say, oh, hold on 1 minute, let me just hold you, because you're okay. You don't have to convince me of that, or you don't have to convince yourself. What would you say as helping people to speak? Because you help people give TEDx talks, you help people speak in front of people, you set up environments. What would you say? Do you experience that same thing, that vibrationally the message communicates even more than the words that we say?
Oh, completely. I talk about the 4 parts of compelling communication. First and foremost, 50% of what the audience is taking in is all your nonverbal communication and the presence that you bring into the room.
Okay,
Right?
bam, stop. For listeners, I want you to just highlight this, okay? If we were on a book, I would want you to just see, that wasn't 5%, that was 50% of what happens. It's the presence that you bring into the room. So how important is it for people to be in their self, to be centered in themselves, to bring their presence with them?
It's huge, huge. And the thing is that we don't realize is our brain is tricking us. So the minute you walk into a room knowing that maybe you're networking, so there's a whole bunch of people and you're like, oh, people are going to know, people are going to see me. Oh, what are they going to think of me? All that stuff is running. And if you're pushing out that vibration, right? Or you go to get on stage, you get the fight or flight, your amygdala kicks off and you have all this adrenaline in your body and it's trying to figure out what to do. Your body actually starts to self-soothe, but what the audience sees is pinned elbows, holding onto a mic for dear life, holding onto a podium, standing, blocking the energy between you and the audience. And the audience reads it as, she's not confident, she's not who she says she is, and she's got something to hide. Wow. So I'm going to listen until I can figure out what she's hiding from me so that I can be right about it.
Wow. So what I hear you also saying, which is really beautiful, is at the same time the speaker is reinforcing his thought process or her thought process about himself by communicating the messages actually opposite of what he or she wants to communicate, but that reinforces the I'm not good enough. The audience is spending its time wanting to confirm its belief systems because it sees the speaker is uncomfortable and wants to find out what's going on. So how much is really being spoken to and communicated to and listened to and heard?
None of it's being heard, because they're like literally going, why is this person so nervous? Or if you've seen somebody like shaking when they're speaking, yeah, we're all like, oh, I feel so bad for them. How can I fix them? How can I make them feel good so they don't stop shaking? You're not even listening to the words coming out of their mouth. And if you notice, a novice speaker, the first piece that they come out is, let me tell you who I am, so right, I can prove to you that I am the expert that I am. Instead of, actually, I have exercises you can do that you can actually rewire your nervous system in those moments and be open body language. And like, how many of you in here are a part of my tribe in a way? Like, that's kind of the way that we do it. Yeah. And it opens that body language. It shows that you're confident. And then you have the audience look at each other and say, look how many people agree with you in this room. All of a sudden they're a tribe and you're the leader because you led them into it. So then all of a sudden, all of that stuff goes away and you can lead them with your message.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find that once people get through the first fear podium, the first fear pedestal, the first fear mountain, that then they sort of can relax and coast down? Or do you find that depending on who the speaker is, they just go through fear, or whatever? How does, because what's really interesting is my late wife died of the most painful cancer you could ever imagine. And she had an inoperable tumor on her spine and no doctor would touch it. There was one doctor in Dallas who said, I'll do this. I can do the surgery. And so we flew to Dallas and I spoke with him, and he was such, pardon my language, an a-hole. He was rude to us. He wasn't nice. And my wife was already just crumbling from the disease. And I said, hold it, I would like to take you outside for a minute. He said, I don't have much time. I said, I don't care how much time you have. I want to take you outside. I need to talk to you. And we walked outside and I said, what gives you the right to speak to my wife like that? She's already in a devastated situation, and you have the audacity to come in here and with your pride talk to us as if we don't exist. Why do you do that? And he paused for a minute and a tear came to his eye. And he said, you broke me out of it. He said, but I hate to be broken out of it because your wife is a gorgeous woman who's going to die way before her time. And when I think about it, it causes me so much pain that I have to isolate it and say, this isn't a person, this is a situation. And I said, please go back into the room and say that to my wife. And please just be honest and vulnerable. And he did, to his credit. And my wife relaxed and said, I'm just here as long as I'm here. And I thank you so much for trying to keep me here a little bit longer. And then I asked him this question. I said, do you feel confident that you can do this? And he said, Danny, I learned something early on. If I walk into a room and that bead of sweat is not going down the center of my back, that petrifies me. I don't do the surgery because I want it to be there so that I honor the process of what's about to happen. So talk to us a little bit, if you can, about that fear that comes in speaking. And then I want to get back to the other 3 pedestals.
Yeah. The fear is really to be judged, criticized, and ridiculed. And we look at some of the major leaders in our history, Martin Luther King, Jesus. You see that Abraham Lincoln, they were all taken out, right, for their message. Yeah. And so that's burned so much in our human DNA that sometimes overrides everything else. And so the fear might not be, I'm standing up here and that's scary and there's a lion that's going to get me, but the same feelings and the same neurotransmitters are being released into your body. And so what you need to realize is if you are here to make a difference on this planet, you will be judged, you will be criticized, and you will be ridiculed. And I don't care how big of a name or how small of a name, how big of an impact, you will have people who don't like your message. And you have to get to the point where that's okay. They're just sorting themselves out. The way that the universe tells me all the time, it's great if people walk out of the room because they're clear that they're not their person. And that just gives more room for the people that need to get into the room for those other seats, right? And so just knowing that, I swear, it's a debilitating thing. People will pay me in full to work with me for 6 months and never show up.
Wow.
And it's that fear that's getting in their way of like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to tell my story.
Wow.
Oh, what's going to happen from that? And also a lot of people's stories have other characters in the story that there might be some unhealed work to be done. There might be some repercussions that come from sharing that story, right, with other people. And you have to know that you had this thing happen to you for a reason so that you can help people that are in the midst of it right now, praying for an answer, meditating to bring in the answer to your problem. And if you don't share your story, you're not helping those people. They're still suffering. Yeah. And so it's not about you. It's about the message that you're here to deliver and help somebody.
Yeah. I want to also just go another direction with that because I love what you're saying. And yet my own personal belief system is I don't think we can do that much to help anybody. I think that everybody's just a reflection of us. And the more that we bring peace, like I wrote a book called The Mosaic. And so a mosaic is made up of pieces. And the more we can bring PEACE, peace, into the PIECE of the pieces, that's what starts to spread like wildfire. So to me, the beauty of telling our story is that we come to peace with who we are. We come to peace with what's happened to us. We come to peace that we're not ashamed of ourselves or embarrassed. And we speak that peace and give people the strength to say, what's ever happened to you, it's beautiful. Share your story because it'll bring you peace when you can do it. So Just a side note. Let's go back. You can answer back if you want. I didn't mean to close it down on that, but
No.
what you spoke of the first pillar. What are the other three pillars?
So the second pillar is is the vocal tonality, right? So we did nonverbal, now it's vocal tonality. This is a piece that most people have no idea about at all, but we're boring as humans. We go around being very monotone. So I always say we have our normal talking voice. So this is the voice we're talking all day long, every day, no matter what the situation, no matter where we are. And then a puppy walks in and we go, oh my gosh, look at the puppy, it's so cute. We go really high in our head voice. And then when we want the puppy to sit, we go down into our chest voice. Yeah. But most of the time we're sitting here in this normal talking voice that's very monotone. We have the same pacing, we have the same pitch, the same tone, the same volume, and none of it changes.
Boring, right?
Yeah. And so when you actually hear people that can do it and do it all the time, it actually creates a melody with your voice.
Yes.
Important words, you want to slow them down, right? And because if you're speaking, I work a lot in the tech space with a lot of high-level C executives, and a lot of them are speaking so fast about the data, and they're not breathing through it. And so people are like, I am totally lost. What did they just say?
Yeah.
And so those things are really important. And when you create a melody with your voice, you actually unlock the episodic part of someone's memory. So if you ever think about it, you turn on the radio, you could probably jam out to a 20, 30 songs and know every single word to. But you might not remember what you ate for breakfast.
That's right.
Because it's in a different part of your memory. And so to actually become memorable, you need to use tonality to drive that in so that people are like, man, you took me on a journey. I was like, what did you like about what I said? And they're like, I don't know, but man, I felt a lot of emotions. It was amazing. Like, and it's so funny because half the time people are like, I have no idea what you said.
Yeah.
You know, they might take out one thing, but it was how you made them feel because you showed them you were confident. You showed them you knew the route to the top of the mountain. Then you made it memorable with your journey of tonality. And the third piece is your story. And when you tell that story in a way that unlocks the audience's story, you know, when I shared my story about my father and my mother and all those things, it unlocked your story. They go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I've been there, done that. And when you do that, you're listening to your own oxytocin when you share your story. And it's that feel good. It's that nice, loving feeling. But when you tell your story well and the audience is in their story, they're releasing their own oxytocin, and now you're bonded because that's the chemical that we use with mommies and babies, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so it really is important if you tell your story from this is what I love. I jumped out of bed, put my feet on the floor, went in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, got into my car, was driving to work. That is really how a lot of people tell their story. Wow. I, me. Wow. The audience is sitting there going, shut up about you already and get to me and solving my problem or telling me what I could do different.
Right.
And so if you're in the me story, nobody's really listening. So if you can tell it in a way, and I always say there's three major parts of that is a human connection level. You might not have experienced death like you and I have, but if we talk about what it felt like and how lonely we felt and what that loneliness felt like in our body, and then how angry I was when I heard that my dad died, that I punched a hole in the wall, then you get that because you've been in one of those situations. Yeah. And maybe not to do with death. And so it's a really great way of being able to unlock any audience culturally, age, sex, doesn't matter, because you can talk about the human experience as our thoughts, our feelings, and the feelings in our physical body, the things that we actually all feel. We know what anger feels like in our body. We know what the cold breeze feels on our body, those kinds of things. You can relate to anyone's story and really open their story.
I really want to highlight that by a story. Because when I started writing the Mosaic, which is a fable, I was sitting on a plane and I was writing the first chapter. And this woman sitting next to me said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm starting to write a book. And she said, what kind of book? And I told her what it was, and it was a fable, and I was writing. She said, would you mind if I read a chapter? I said, well, that's all I have written, so you're more than welcome to read it. I'd love your thoughts on it. And I showed her my computer, and she read it. And I said, what are your thoughts? And she said, well, I wish you would have described the traits of the character. I wish you would have told me what color his hair was and what color his eyes were. And I thought, what beautiful comments. And I said, but the fact that I didn't, what color do you think their hair and eyes are? And she said, well, they're obviously not dark hair and dark eyed. And I said, why? She said, well, everybody I know has dark hair and dark eyes, and they would never be like this person. So I said to her, isn't that interesting? Because the very thing that you're telling me to do would have made the story, had they been dark haired and dark eyed, you would have shut that out. So there's something beautiful in telling a story where you get to fill in what the people look like, where you get to describe what the qualities are, where you just telling them enough that it highlights in them what their story is. And I remember that to this day. So
and I love it. So there's another thing that I didn't think about that actually in telling your story does. So instead of saying, I have a yacht and I have a boat and I've done all these things, look at how amazing I am. Instead of that, when you tell your story, you're sharing characteristics. If I said that at my very first speaking engagement, I was 10 years old, standing room only, and not a dry eye in the room, it was my dad's funeral.
Wow.
You'll think, oh my gosh, that's very brave of a 10-year-old to do that. And how amazing is that? And so you start to build up my characteristics about who I am based on my story. And so you don't have to say, I'm Erin and I'm so brave.
Right.
You don't, it's alliterated in your story if you do it well.
It's so much like writing a book. And I worked at Hay House for 10 years. And so we spoke about writing a book. And so often people would tell people things rather than show them things. And when they could show them things and let them describe what they saw, it was way better than telling you things. So it's speaking and writing are very simpatico. Okay.
For sure.
Step 4
is the words. And your words really don't matter. It's only 7%. Wow. So you laugh about it. It's 50% is your nonverbal, 35% is your vocal tonality, 17% is, or 13% is your storytelling, and 7% is your the words you choose. So people are so worried about writing a speech, and really, truly, the words don't matter. Wow. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
And so riddle me this, Batgirl, because this is so interesting, because so many people memorize their talks because they want them to be clear, they want them to follow a train of thought, they want them to have it. But so many times people memorize it and you can feel that it's not spontaneous, and you can feel like there are people that do it great. Tony Robbins is one of the best people at memorizing a talk, but making you feel like it's the first time he's ever given it, even though he's given it 10,000 times before. But most people are not that way, and you can almost feel it. So what do you say about memorizing? Because you do TED Talks, right? Those are very, right? And I always thought, like, how would I ever do a TED Talk? Because I never memorize my talk. I just allow it to go. But there's always some spontaneity and beauty in it that something awakens. And yet you have to stay on. So what's your advice to people that either memorize or don't memorize? What's the center point?
Yeah, so I only really teach memorization if you have to for TEDx, because I believe in the same thing that you're talking about. The thing that we're all really nervous about when we think we need to write it so it's scripted so I don't forget it. Because what if I get up there and I'm like, what was they going to say? And that really doesn't happen. And even if it happens for a second, nobody noticed but you. Yeah. And it's what that pain piece, that scary part for people. And truly, you know your story inside and out. And you also know the value pieces you're teaching, unless you're not really an expert at what you're teaching, right? And so what I do is, the only reason we write a script, when I work with somebody, we write out a script because I first want to show them how to share their story, how to write it in a way that the audience is really listening. And then I write it in tonality, when to go up, when to slow down, when to speed up. all of that so that they can start to practice that, because how else are you going to practice it? Unless you've learned it and done it, you don't know how to even, hey honey, I'm going to be up in my high voice when I say hi when you walk in, or you don't know. So if I do it in a script, you start to learn why you do those things and how you do them on purpose, so that it becomes the pivotal piece for you to learn to do it all the time. But really, truly, I even think with some TEDx people aren't going to care that you're on script or off script. I have never done one. I've never done my own TEDx yet. I haven't quite figured out what I'd want to do it on yet. So I've been helping other people do theirs, which I love. And
Did we freeze here, or did you? Hello? 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 Okay, this has never happened. I think we've lost her for a little bit. So we're going to give it a minute to see if she can come back. And if she doesn't come back, we're going to make a part 2. She's gone. So one of the reasons why I'm so excited about having her on is speaking is such an important part of our lives. And most of us are not really all that great at it. And so what I hope you're getting in this talk, and I get to briefly summarize for you, is how important every single step is. We think it's just our words. We think it's just our tone. We think it's our cadence. But sometimes that silence, that pause, that place that we put in between, sometimes raising our voice up, sometimes lowering our voice down, makes it so much more interesting in telling our story. So I'm hoping Erin's going to come back. I'm hoping we haven't lost her for good. But if you want to get in contact with her, we're going to put all of her information down below. Everybody wants to do a TEDx talk, right? So if you want to do a TEDx talk and need someone to guide you through it, Erin was just saying, even though she hasn't done her own, that she's more than willing to help you. And that's what she does. She helps people create a TEDx talk. So let's see what's happening here. I'm going to hope that she finds her way back in. I found for me that stories are the most important part of any talk that you give. So many times we think, here she comes. Okay, you had me ad-libbing there. So I was talking about how stories are important and all this stuff. So we'll get back to, you can listen to me anytime. Erin's back, which is the most important thing. We lost her for a little while. I was like, hello. And then I just was talking about how important it is for anybody who wants to do a talk to contact you, because just these few little points that you're sharing with us are things most people don't think about, and how important that is to do it. So let's, in the few minutes that we have about 10 minutes left. I just wanted to ask you a couple other things of, in the work that you've done with people, in the talks that you've helped them prepare, and in bringing people out to speak to other people, what's something that you found out that completely surprised you?
that people feel like they don't have anything to share.
Wow.
I think that people have this old pattern of, oh, well, if I have these degrees, or if I have this, background, then I'll have the data and then I can share my stuff. And what they don't realize is what you said, we're all a reflection of each other. And if you can just share your experience and heal your story, and listen to other people share their story and heal their story, and maybe even, hey, this worked for me, maybe that'll work for you, as solutions, then we can change the world. But I think most people think, well, what do you mean? I have these stories, but
so you may
not help.
You may not like me now, but you gave me permission before we got on air to ask anything. Okay. So before we went into our little Mercury retrograde, almost just out of, disconnect here of in the middle of talking, we left each other. What I remember you saying is, I haven't given my TEDx talk yet because I don't know what I would say, which sounds exactly like the thing that surprises you with the people that you talk to, if they don't know exactly what they would say. But anybody listening to you for even a second or two feels how much you have to say, and feels not only the content of what you have to say, but the vibration and the energy that you say it with. So let me ask you again, why haven't you given a TEDx talk?
It hasn't been the thing that I needed to do. So for me, a lot of people come to me and say, I want a TEDx because I want the credibility and I know all this stuff, and I don't need the credibility for that. And I'm past that. And I think a lot of times when I look at it, I go, it's a lot of work, and do I have the time to put into that? And people don't realize it can take 9 months of you working on a script with somebody and doing this work.
Wow.
And then I also think about...
So hold on 1 minute.
Yeah.
When you say it's going to take 9 months, would it take 9 months for you to do that? No. Okay. So it would take 9 months from a beginner speaker probably, or a middle.
No, it depends on that. Depends on the organizer. So I don't want to throw any organizers under the bus. However, some organizers make you submit a script and they mess with it for 9 months before you. And I've had a couple of my clients on this stage, one of the biggest ones out there. They given them their script back and approved it 4 days before they took stage.
Wow. Wow.
And that kind of stuff, like, I don't like rules. I make my own rules. And so I think and there might be other organizers that would be totally open to me just being able to do what I do best. Yeah. And so there's that piece of like, do I really want to play within the boundaries? I'm not that girl. So that's more of what it is. It's not that I don't know what to say, because there's a lot to say.
You know what to say.
Yeah, but it's also like, what do they want to hear? Because they're gonna mix up your message too. That's the other thing you don't realize, is that I had a client who is gonna end single-use plastic on the planet by using bioplastics made from hemp and other different biodegradable stuff. Her whole thing was talking about how hemp could change the world, and how in Seattle, cannabis is open. So it's like this new market of like, they make concrete out of it. You can make cars out of it. You can make clothes out of it. There's so many things. You could eat your yogurt and throw the thing in the garbage, or in your compost. Your compost.
Compost. Wow.
So she had a message, but then they wanted their own spin on it, and they totally changed her message, and she was disappointed. Like, that's not the TEDx I wanted to give. So you have to, like, this is behind the curtain. There's a lot of things, and this is what I ask people when we have a conversation about it, because I want them to be totally aware that the message you start with might not be the one you're able to deliver. And are you okay with that or not?
So for anybody wanting to do a TEDx, do they have to submit a script?
Yes.
So a TEDx needs a script, and you have to stay on script. So I couldn't just submit a script and then just go off script.
They'll have you do it in rehearsals. So you'd have to at least practice it enough to do it in rehearsal, so they approve you. But then if you wanted to go rogue, and I did not say that out loud.
That's right. Okay. All right. What's one thing that from all your experience with people has really surprised you?
I think that, so here I am sitting in my hometown, like 3,000 people growing up, coming from very humble beginnings. I think so many times people think they have to have all this stuff and all these accomplishments and all these things before they can start speaking and sharing. And what I noticed is some of the biggest names out there, like Brennan Burchard, lived only 4 hours from me and grew up in Montana in a similar, background as I did. So I think that whole persona thing that people, this ego piece of like, I have to do all this and then I can speak, or I have to have more content to be able to share with the world. It really has shocked me that when you peel back the layers, that we all come from this place, and we're not doing it to be like, oh, look at me, most of us. But it's about the message getting out, right? And so I think sometimes people think I have to be oh, look at me, I've had these accomplishments, and then I can start speaking. And so I think there's It needs to be flipped, that people need to realize that the things they've experienced in their life is enough for them to share their message.
Yeah. I love that, because a lot of what I believe is our presence is our message, not our words. And if we walk into a room and we were silent, but we held presence, people would walk away impacted. And so it isn't so much the words or the vibration or all that thing, but it is a vibration, but it isn't so much that. So as we wind down, couple few questions more, okay?
Yeah.
If you could say one thing to this world that we live in right now that would be listened to, what would you say?
I love that question, because that's a question I said, if I have 1 million, of an audience of 1 million, you have 1 hour to live, to say one message, and then you die when you get off stage. What do you want to leave the planet with?
Wow.
Let's get people really clear.
Yeah.
What do you communicate? Mine truly would be that we all have the same beliefs underneath all of the masks and layers. We all want to know that we're worthy. We want to know and be validated. We want to be lovable, all of those things. And if you can just look out at the world and see that the way that the people are interacting, it's because hurt people, and that the healing needs to happen, and it needs to happen here first before you can go out and help other people heal that and maybe reflect it to them, that it can be worked through. Because truly, we are all worthy, or we wouldn't be here. And we all have a purpose, or we wouldn't still be here. And especially in the mix of my brother-in-law almost dying this week at 36, it gives you a really strong wake-up call of like, oh man, time is limited. I got to get this stuff out in a big way. And I think to really look at what are those things you're saying to yourself and you believe in yourself, those stories and programs that you've created for yourself that's limiting your impact in the world. You need to look at those, heal them, find someone that can help navigate through that, because truly you have a bigger purpose and a bigger calling, and it's time, because you don't know how much time you got to live it out.
So the problem about having a conversation with an empath is I could have said exactly those same words. And so I love that. But that's so important, what you just said. And so our final question is, and this I ask to every single person. When you look at the world today, and I know you have kids, right?
Yep, a 3.5-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Okay. So when you look at the world the way it is today, and I mean, we've come a long way and we have some great things, but we're sort of a mess in terms of how much disagreement and angst and anxiety and stress there is. Is this the world that you always dreamed of giving to your children and your children's children?
No, and there is a massive opportunity right now. I think, I don't care what side of anyone's fences anyone sits on, but with what's happening on the planet, and especially in the United States with the person who's in charge, it has stirred up a lot of things, and it's kind of given you an opportunity to choose what side you sit on and what you decide and what you believe in. And it feel like it's a big cauldron of like, oh, let's throw that in and see what happens. And then it mixes it up and people are like, ooh, I'm not okay with that. And I will do something about that. And I think for the first time on this planet, people are not just numbed out to all of the problems of the world. They're actually starting to see them and go, ooh, I'm not okay with that. And I want to do something about it. And so in that turmoil of like, yeah, this isn't what I really want. At the same time, it's kicking up a lot of things of like, ooh, what can we create with all of this contrast that's happening? It's getting people to go, you know what, I'm going to take a stand for that. And I think for the first time, I'm going to use my voice and make it known that that's not okay. And I think that that's a beautiful place for this world to be in at this moment, because who knows what's possible if more people who have been silenced and quiet and not making a difference are actually going to start taking a stand for things. I think the whole world can change quickly.
I love when a story comes full circle and you can put a pretty little bow tie on it or pink ribbon around it, because in essence, that's the Mosaic podcast. The Mosaic podcast wants to give voice to the voiceless people, those people that no one's ever listened to, those people that have never used their voice, those people that haven't come to you yet, that have to flood your phone lines and your website so that they can learn how to tell their story, because our stories are needed now more than ever. Because the more stories that get told, the more people that tell their stories, the more we'll realize underneath all the seeming differences that exist on the outside are people on the inside that all of us want to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, validated and acknowledged. In my 64 years on this planet, not one person has ever said to me, Danny, I need you to agree with me. When I've understood them and I've acknowledged them, I've validated them, I accepted them, they said, thank you for doing that. You listened to me. And in a world where we talk, what the other thing I want to just sort of summarize and close with my own thoughts on it, when you tell your story, please be kind enough to allow other people to tell their story and listen to their story as well. And one of the things I love about what Erin's doing in her Transformational Speakers Summit is we get a chance to hear a lot of people tell their story. And we get a chance to listen to other people who will tell their story, whether they be on stage or in the audience. We get a chance to interact with each other. And we're in a place right now, in my mind, where we just need to listen. Listen more, speak less. But when we do speak, we need to tell our story. Erin, when they flood you to get in touch with you because they want to learn how to either give a TEDx talk or just tell their story or just stand more confident in the presence of who they are, how would they get in touch with you?
You can always go to my website, which is erinlomanjeck.com, and I know it'll be in the notes, but also the event we have coming up in September in Palm Springs, California, September 19th through the 21st. It's been being held on International Peace Day, so we're excited to have Danny come and share some stuff about how he wants to create some more peace in the world. And it really is an amazing opportunity for people to learn from all different people, to really from everything from creating what is my talk and who am I and what should I share, to how to create a business around it and actually get it out there to the world. And we cover all of that in 3 days. And that's at the transformationalspeakerssummit.com.
And we will definitely have all those notes down below. And for any of you who have heard this podcast and haven't had a chance to meet me and want to come and meet me, what a perfect opportunity. Palm Springs in September is gorgeous. We'll have fun together. We'll enjoy each other. We'll talk with each other. We'll be there together. And you'll meet a lot of my friends, because a lot of my friends will be speaking there as well. So I can't encourage you enough to go to transformationalspeakerssummit.com and erinlomanjeck.com, and we'll put those notes down below.
And you know what, since you're so special, if you are listening to this, if you type in the coupon code section, speakers, all caps, you get 50% off your ticket.
50% off?
Yes.
We just watched Cat in the Hat with my daughter, and they go, they're making this cookie thing, and they go, you can put anything in anything, 50% off. 50% off is a lot. So that means you and a friend can come for the price of one person. So that's unbelievable. So put speaker in there, make sure you do it, and come and spend that time with us. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to answer or you want to talk about?
No, I just want to say right now, more than ever, people are dying to hear your message. They need what you have inside of you. And it's time to stop being selfish, to hold on to it. It's time to start sharing that and really learning how to open yourself up, change the world by just hearing someone else, validating someone else, and sharing, man, I've been there too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for being on the show. In closing, One of the things I've noticed is when we embrace and look at the things we're scared of. If you're scared of speaking, walk, run, crawl to meet with Erin. Because when you get over those things you're scared of, you literally drop walls and barriers that have been hiding you. So I can't emphasize enough. The notes will be below. We'll do it. I want to hear Erin tell me, oh my God, I got more response from this podcast than any other thing I've ever done, because that's how important it is. It's time for you to be heard. This is the podcast for the people who have no voice to have a voice. Why not make it happen? Thank you again, Erin. Much love to you. And I look forward to seeing you really soon. And for those of you on the podcast, we'll see you next podcast. Thank you again. If you like the podcast, give it a 5-star. Give it 5 stars. Write a review. Get involved. Come on, be active. All right. Big love. Ciao.